There we go. Hello, I'm that James guy, and this is my 2008 Kawasaki KLR 650, and today we're gonna dive into the carburetor. It has a little bit of a jetting issue. I don't know if you saw my last ride, my 650-mile ride that I did with my buddies. You really notice this when you're going like 115K an hour and you slowly roll the throttle on. There seems to be a dead spot there, bit of a dead spot. When you get up into higher elevations, like way up there, 5,000 feet, the issue seems to go away, and that tells me that it's running lean. It does have an aftermarket exhaust pipe, full system, Jardine system on it. I suspect the jetting is bone stock on this thing, and it does have a K&N filter, for better or for worse. Not sure if that's good, but that might be exacerbating the problem. But we're gonna take the carb apart, need to take the tank off, show you how to do that. And we're gonna get in there. I don't know what's in this carb. I don't know if it's been jetted, I doubt it, but we will see. There is a 25-cent mod. If you Google that, KLR owners like to do it. It fixes the mid-range lean jetting. These things are jetted lean from the factory. They were able to keep the carburetor up to like 2018 because some Japanese motorcycle grandfather clause that allowed them to just keep making carburetors unless they changed the bikes, which they did in 2022, went to fuel injection. But we still have a carburetor on this one. Yeah, it's jetted lean in the mid-range, and the idle circuit's really lean. There's an idle screw we can adjust on it. Looks like that's been done because it idles really well. And hey, while we're at it, we'll kind of explain how carburetors work. We'll try anyway. Let's get started here. There's a grand total of 3 hoses that you need to take off. So here's the overflow hose. Just want to take your needle nose and just kind of give it a little shake, little wiggle. It just pulls off. That's the vent, the tank vent. And then we got a couple farther down under here. One of them is the main line here. Hold it. Let's just get down into position. Okay, here's one. And let's turn the fuel off. Fuel is off. There's your main gas line right here. And then you've got a kind of like a pressure or vacuum line here. And all that does is it enables fuel to flow through here once your engine's running and you've got vacuum. So first of all, I'm sure we're gonna have a spill. So let's get a towel. Hopefully this is easy. And with this clamp, you just kind of give it a bit of a twist and wiggle it down like that. Don't want to like damage the rubber with your pliers or anything like that. There we go. There we go. And then we've got that one up here. A little bit more difficult to get to. Doesn't help that I have this crash guard in the way. Pop. There we go. So that's those 2 lines. A couple screws on the fairing that holds this fairing to the fuel tank. This one here and one down here. And this nice little damaged plastic there. Someone else crashed it on me, I guess. Previous owner. I swear it was the previous owner. Looks like the crash bar's in the way here. This is gonna be a bit of a chore. And that can just actually stay there. Got a bit more flex there. All right, that one can stay in there loose. Clearly not an OEM screw. All right, we're hooked on some throttle cables under here. It's not going well, folks. There we go. All right, here's the carb. You can see here's the throttle. I'm gonna just unbolt this to give ourselves a little room. I'm not gonna remove the carb. I'm just gonna turn it. I'm gonna loosen off the clamps and we're gonna try and turn this thing, get a bit of access to the slide. First thing we're gonna do is pull this off. This is just the throttle cable kind of brackety thing, technical term for it. And then we're just gonna slide this apart. Just gives us some more room to work with. Motorcycles always have a pull cable and a push cable, just in case of emergency. If it doesn't return, you could force the throttle closed. This is just the regular butterfly throttle. The slide is completely separate and it is in here. And we'll look at that here in a minute. We'll loosen off these clamps. So this is the air filter side and then the intake side. So that's loose now. I just want to turn this thing to get access to all these screws. Like that, kind of. kind of like that. What we have under here, we'll have a diaphragm and we'll have a spring. And then once we kind of get that stuff out of the way, we'll have a slide. You're going to want to push down on this because we got a spring under here. Not a very strong spring, but it's still a spring, and we don't want stuff flying all over the place, do we? Give it a bit of a jiggle, a little bit of spring tension, and this just pops off like that. I'll take note of the direction on this thing. There's nothing special. Okay. This is where the spring pushes down. It kind of holds the needle. So this needle held down by the spring. As the slide moves in and out, the needle moves in and out, and I'll show you that in a second. Taking a look, do we have washers? We do not, although there's something in here. There is a washer. So this washer that I have here was actually laying beside the needle. So it's almost as if someone has been in here before and put a washer under, but never went back in. Okay, I just got back from the hardware store, picked up some number 6 washers. According to the internet, number 4 washers is what you want, but this is as small as it got. Seems to fit pretty good. If you look here what I'm doing, you can see here I've got this small washer that was laying beside on top, and then I've got this other one beside it. It seems to fit nice and tight. So what you do is you take your slide, you drop that down into place, and then this is the holder that the spring pushes down on. And when I push down on that needle hanging out the side, it's nice and tight. It doesn't jiggle up and down or anything. So I've raised the needle up. There's another part of this mod, which is a little scary, but I don't care. See this little pinhole? That little hole in front of the needle right there? That is basically what allows vacuum from the bottom to get to the top to pull the slide up. So this is a CV carburetor. This is a constant velocity carburetor. At the end of the era of carburetors and motorcycles, probably for the last 20 years of it, they used CV carbs because they were a lot more responsive, they were cleaner, they met emissions, all that kind of stuff. How they work is you've got this slide sitting in the carb, and as the air passes through, this thing kind of, blocks off the air. Constant velocity. So if you've got not very much velocity going through because your throttle is closed ahead of it, this would be farther down to keep the velocity under here because your main jet's sitting here. The vacuum inside of here is basically pulling gasoline up through the main jet through this needle. You can see this needle, it's tapered, right? Needle is tapered, it's small at the bottom and big at the top. So as the slide moves out, let's say this was the hole it was in where my finger is, basically it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, the needle, and you allow more space for the gas to come up, gasoline to come up and atomize in the air. So how this worked is this little pinhole. So if you've got a bunch of air rushing in and it comes up to the front of the slide and that's a squish to a small spot, what's gonna happen is it's gonna go faster and the pressure is gonna drop underneath it. And as the pressure drops, or I guess technically it's a vacuum, this little pinhole would allow this vacuum to come up on this large surface area diaphragm. So if you have a low pressure, or a vacuum, I guess you could call it, sitting up top, what it's gonna do is it's actually gonna pull this entire slide up. So let's say you crank the throttle, not much airflow because the RPMs are down. So this thing pops up, but as it raises up, you're increasing this air gap underneath here, so the vacuum is going to decrease. So it actually would find a balance point between the spring pushing it down and the amount of vacuum this diaphragm's pulling up, right? Even if you're holding it right to the pin, as the RPMs start coming up, this slide is going to move higher and higher and higher. As this velocity, if it increases, it's going to cause more vacuum and it's just going to lift it out. And then as it lifts, you get more and more space for this gas. So it's going to enrich the mixture accordingly. And that's basically how a CV carb works. It works independently of the throttle, completely independently. Later, like fuel injection bikes, like I think my V-Strom, the Suzuki, it actually simulated this with a second throttle valve. So even if you pinned it, the computer would only allow, it would keep the velocity up by slowly opening that thing. And that's essentially was copying what this old school technology was doing all along. So that's about as good of an explanation I think I can give. By raising this needle, you can see here I'm getting the smaller part of the needle in sooner. So I'm enriching that mixture earlier in the rev range. That's essentially what I'm doing here. Drilling this pinhole out a little bit to 7/64. That's what you got to do. It doesn't make much of a difference. Essentially just allows more vacuum or low pressure to get to the top, and it just reacts quicker. Or so I'm told. I guess we'll find out the hard way, won't we? Okay, here we go. That was easy. Get the filings out of here. Don't want those to go in the engine. All right, to put this thing back together, we have our needle, we have our slide. You can see the two washers and how they're gonna sit in here. All you gotta do is just drop them down in there, make sure they don't fall off. They're nicely down there. Kind of jiggle this around, make sure that it's tight, and we'll get our spring in. So by pushing down on our spring, we'll just verify that that needle is still tight up and down, which it is. And then we can basically just drop this into place. Sometimes it's a bit finicky getting this needle to line up with the hole way down in the bottom there. Shouldn't be a problem. Just want to make sure that this diaphragm is sitting in the groove. You don't want that thing squeaking out on you. See here, the spring actually has a bit of a thing that it sits in here. Kind of jiggle it down into place. And I'll look around, make sure that the cap is flat on the top of the carburetor body, which it is. And that's that. Next thing I'm gonna do is turn the carb the other way and see if we can get at this idle mixture screw. So you see it there? We're gonna count the amount of turns that it takes to screw in. Now, from the factory, this is stuck at 1.5 turns, and so you bottom it out and then you back it off 1.5. And for emission's sake, they put a plug in here that you have to drill out to get to. Obviously, someone has done that. I just want to see where we're at. Most guys put them to 2 turns. I've bottomed that out. I'm going to count 12 flats because 1 revolution is 6 flats. See flats? Flats of the hex. 1, 2, 12. Seemed to be where it was about at. It runs really good at idles. Don't think I actually had to do that. And we'll just straighten this thing out now. The rest of this, I'm just gonna hammer it back together in reverse of normal, and then we'll go out for a rip. We'll see how it runs. Runs good. All right, I'm dripping with sweat. I'm gonna take this thing for a rip now. I'm not even gonna put a riding jacket on. It's like 40 degrees today, which is normal for around here. But yeah, anyway, I don't wanna sweat any more than I already am. So let's just take this thing out and see how it does. Okay, here we go. We're just gonna whip up the highway here. Get it up to speed as quickly as we can. It is hot outside. Ugh, gross. So kind of unsafe with no riding gear really, but this is not normal. This is just a test run. Don't judge me. Please don't judge me. So far so good, so at least I haven't broken it. Not that you'd be able to tell if it's any better yet, but it still works. That's the main thing here. Oh dang, slow car. I want to be able to wick it up here. See what this thing can kind of do. Ugh. Okay, here's a passing lane. Okay, running real good. I haven't really got up to the testing speed yet. Yeah, that's it right there. There's no hesitation, but it is real hot out. So, you know, it would be running a little richer than normal anyway, but no, it seems to be responding pretty good here. No hesitation, no dead spot like it had before. I think it's better. I mean, it is better, but I don't know if that's just because it's super hot out. Yeah, I think it's good. I think whatever we did, it helped. This is good news. Very good news. This is supposed to be a 22-cent mod, but okay, fine. It was a bag of washers. I couldn't buy just one, so it ended up being like $2.50. But that's okay. $2.50 and a bit of time. Oh, this valley never gets old. The views. Yeah, I see that was a pretty cheap fix, and I get to make a great video like this for you guys. Man, I can't get over how good this bike is on the highway. Honestly, so good. Oh, mirror is completely out of whack. I think I had my helmet on it. Oh well. We're just gonna go up ahead here. There's a nice pull-out we can turn around. Beautiful lookout, actually. So like these valley views, this is the South Okanagan Valley. It is a desert. Tell by all the crazy sagebrush and cactuses along the road here.
All right, here's our pullout. There's the view, folks. That's looking south. There's Soyuz Lake, beauty. Let's turn around and go back. Success. I'm gonna call this a giant smashing success. The 22-cent mod. I'm liking this bike so much that I think I'm really thinking I should get a 2022. I mean, it's not much different. It's just got fuel injection. I don't have to worry about stuff like this. Anyway, back to the garage.
There, fixed. Couple technical issues I need to mention is there are tabs on this fairing that engage in the fuel tank. I didn't see that when I pulled it apart, so I did on the other side, well, both sides. I had to loosen off my crash bars, kind of spread them out so I could get these fairings kind of spread apart so that the little nubs could fit into the fuel tank, and that's it. So I hope you found this useful, or at least mildly entertaining. I will see you next time.